Hello, everybody. Welcome to the International Kriegspiel Society's announcement of our next grand game. I am Marshall, and I am going to talk to you about what the game is going to be and why we have made the choice that we have made. I'm also going to talk to you about what makes this particular event special and to let you know how you can get involved and participate in this really fun event that's coming soon. First of all, let's not keep you waiting any longer. Let's reveal our choice of venue. What battle are we doing? Let's see here. And it's Grand Metz, right? Right? No, really? Nobody's excited about Metz? I don't blame you. No, we're going to get it out of here. Metz is always the joke that I make that every battle is done on Metz, but it is not. Here is the actual choice. And here you have it right here. Jena, Auerstedt, and I'm probably entirely mispronouncing the name of the event, but here it is. We are doing a very special battle, and it is this battle from 1806, Jena, Auerstedt, and I need to listen to it on podcasts or something like 10 more times before I learn how to pronounce it correctly. But this is the battle that we're doing. And the reason why we chose this battle is, for one, it has never actually been done before as a grand game. I don't even know if we've done it as a live game. I suspect it has been done once or twice as a live game, but I have not seen it done. And this is going to be really cool because the cool thing about this is it is naturally broken up into two separate battles. You have one battle that takes place here, and then you have one fight that takes place up here. So that means we're going to have two different tables. The two battles were separated by about 30 kilometers, I believe, which in freedom distance is like a couple blocks, I think, too far to walk. So there's not going to be any transfer of units between one or the other. Instead, it's going to be completely isolated. The two battles, the two tables, if you will run simultaneously, but they will be isolated from each other. There'll be no reinforcements moving from the one table to the other. Now, as you know, we do not like to simply recreate history here in the IKS, because if we give you the same historical dispositions and so on in the same order of battle and everything, we'll end up just recreating history. And we don't want that. Plus, both sides know what the mistakes were. Why? Because you can YouTube or Wikipedia or look up or bust out your Encyclopedia Britannica, whatever. You can figure out what the mistakes were, and you'll take measures to avoid them. So we're not going to get the same battle anyway, even if we did give you the history. But we don't want to risk doing that. So we are always going to do what I call turning the scenario 90 degrees. And that comes from my practice of actually turning the map 90 degrees, or more specifically, having the units come in on alternate roads. So instead of the French coming in here, maybe they come in here or something like this. Now, I'm not actually thinking about doing this. I do believe that the geography of this particular campaign requires that the French come this direction, because they're trying to get to Berlin, and they're trying to use the geography and the terrain to their advantage, well, which is always true. But in this particular case, I'm not really interested in making the French come in on an odd road. They might choose to do that, but I'm not going to force them to do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to find some other ways to kind of turn the scenario 90 degrees, and it will be up to the commanders-in-chief, because there will actually be 4 of them, although there will be a Napoleon for sure, who will be the overall French commander-in-chief. But because you have 2 battles with 2 sides, you're going to have 4 total commanders-in-chief. It's going to be up to those 4 players how exactly this battle in particular unfolds. So you're going to have some, there's going to be something different. We're not just going to be recreating history here. So expect some surprises. All right. The time frame for the event is probably January, and that's because there's a lot of homework to be done. There's a lot of work to do, not to mention the fact that we probably are going to run a couple of dress rehearsals and so on. If you had the terrible misfortune of being live while I made my live announcement, you'll understand why I'm coming back and making another recording for it. It's because the initial recording didn't even record the audio. It was a comedy of errors, and that's because I'm just inept sometimes when it comes to technology. So, a long lead time, plenty of practice time, rehearsing things, and kind of running through the drill is what solves all of that. And I didn't run through the drill before doing the live announcement today, which is why I'm having to re-record all of this right now. In my defense, my computer was recently wiped. I had to send it out and get it back because it needed repair, and they wiped it, sent it back to me. And so there we have it. So none of my settings or software are there except those things which I've installed in the past couple days. But that's excuses. Let's get away from that. All right, let's talk about the system we're going to use. As you may know, I've pioneered a system called SoCal Advance. It's a system that we've been using for well over a decade to run games in person. It is a system that is designed for speed, and it allows one umpire to manage many players very, very quickly. The problem with that system, while mechanically it works well enough, is that it lacks detail. It lacks sort of all these other metrics that people like, things such as cohesion and morale and ammunition tracking and stuff like that. It doesn't really bother with all that because when you're running a live game with one umpire and 12 players, you just don't have time. But that's not going to be the situation we're in. We're going to have the umpires and we're going to have the time to do a better job. So therefore, I've developed another system called SoCal Advance. It is designed based on SoCal, but it is upgraded, if you will, to take into account all of these other metrics that people feel are important, that I agree are important. And it is also doing that while remaining streamlined and being a fast, simple, pleasant, easy system to run. There will be one particular difference, however, between SoCal and SoCal Advanced, and that comes in the area of cavalry. And the problem is that cavalry is so complicated that we can't get any two umpires or anyone hardly to agree on exactly how it should be done. And we certainly can't write 2 or 3 or 4 pages of rules. I'm trying to come up with a system here that is basically explained on a one sheet. And adding cavalry rules is going to explode that one sheet to multiple pages. We don't want to do that. So what I'm doing is I'm teaching the command umpires, and I'll tell you about those fellows in just a moment, command umpires how cavalry tactics of the period worked, and they will free Kriegspiel to resolve each engagement that involves the cavalry. The bottom line is this: for you as players, you're going to have to employ your cavalry properly. If you send cavalry, I don't care if they're cuirassiers, if they're elite guard cavalry, whatever, heaviest cavalry you can think of, if you send them against a well-formed enemy line, you're going to lose your cavalry. You're done. That's it. On the other hand, if you send that attack in with horse artillery support or some other form of support, and it is a well-formed attack, as it would be historically, then you're going to at least have a chance that is going to come close to 100% success rate. But your success will not be guaranteed, and if you send in a poorly formed and organized attack, your success is going to be at 0%, guaranteed. The interactions of the cavalry will simply be resolved by the command umpires, and so the command umpires will know how to do that. Ideally, you're going to want to use your cavalry historically. You want to throw them against weakened troops, against a weakened line. You're going to want to support them. You want to use them to ride down retreating forces and stuff like that. You're going to want to hold them in reserve until later in the battle when you have the enemy starting to waver. Use them as that arm of decision to deliver that final decisive blow, rout the enemy, and win the field. But any other use of them is going to be problematic for you, so you need to think about that when running your cavalry. There's not going to be written rules for it, but the command umpires will be trained. Let's talk about command umpires. The battle is going to have at least 100 to 120 players. There's going to be at least 6 command umpires. Each command umpire will be responsible for a particular sector of the battlefield, and whatever happens on that particular sector of the battlefield, they will make all the decisions for that. They will have a number of assistant umpires under their control and direction. The assistants will do most of the work and most all the interfacing with the players. The command umpires will be resolving everything. These are people who have been handpicked or who have volunteered for the particular job. We're only going to train up a small number of them because that's all we need. And then they will work with their assistant umpires who we will open recruiting for probably sometime in the next month. And they will train their assistant umpires on what to do and so on, so that we will have a well-trained and prepared umpire cadre, if you will, instead of just kind of trying to Shanghai people at the last minute to get people into umpire. We really want this to be a good, proper, well-oiled experience, and the umpire team is critical to that. Let's talk about the system that we are going to use. Not the system, but the pieces, I mean. And to do that, we need to go ahead and exit out of Tabletop Simulator. So let's go ahead and exit that there and go into my desktop, because I saved some pictures of the prototype pieces that we are working on. Unfortunately, I saved them in my super private folder that nobody is allowed to look at because it's got personal pictures. But hey, it's a live stream. What can I do? I guess I've got to show you this stuff. So this here, private, keep out. No peeking. Seriously, NSFW content. Do not open. Go away. My most private pictures. Last warning. Last warning and a half. Top secret. And here they are. I'm sorry, guys. Sorry you have to see all this, but I didn't want to interrupt the live stream or re-record, so here's the pictures. But anyway, here is what you probably are most interested in seeing it. And you know what? Let's open this differently. Let's open this with a Photos app so we can kind of blow it up. Let's do it that way. There we go. All right. Early on in the IKS days, before we were even the IKS, when we were still the SoCal, we experimented with these little thin blocks, and the experiment never went anywhere. We figured they were impractical. We couldn't put text on them. They just didn't serve our purposes, so we scrapped it. In the past year, we have come back around to giving these a try. I know that Blazer and a few others have created these thin line block units, if you will, and have experimented with it. I think they've tried to use it in games. And we here in the Academy, which is the sort of the subgroup of the IKS that's putting this event on, have started experimenting with our own version of these pieces. You see here that we have 3 ranks, if you will. And what's going to happen is as a unit takes casualties, the companies, which each one of these blocks represents, will be pulled off the back end. So rather than using traditional exchange pieces, which cause the line to be shortened, we actually are just going to pull casualties off the 3rd rank. And it isn't until later that the line will start to actually shorten, because that's what they would do. They would pull from the 3rd rank to keep the front 2 ranks essentially intact, so they're still throwing the same volume of firepower out towards the enemy. You see here the big block here in the back. This is the flag. This is probably where we're going to put data or information about the unit. We'll flip this over. We'll have some counters on the back, I think, and those counters will allow us to adjust these units here, adjust the formation, and do other things that will allow us to resolve the combat and keep track of everything the way it needs to be done. Let's take a look at another one of these. Here is, you have a couple columns here. You have a line here. We're looking at red, which would be British, green would be Russian, and so on. So we're just experimenting with colors and design here. And then finally, this here is the one I find interesting. This is how a battalion in line would compare to a full battalion using traditional Kriegspiel blocks. And then, of course, here's your assault column like so. So this is kind of the difference that we're trying to go for so that we get a different look and feel for this event. And instead of seeing these big, huge blocks on the map, you're going to see what look more like realistic lines from that God's eye view that will be live streaming during the actual event. All right, let's talk finally about the command structure for the event. We are going to handpick our 4 CICs for this particular event. We're not going to open it up to a survey or let first come, first served. No, this is far too important. We're going to hand select the commanders in chief. We have a list of people we're going to approach. We're actually still composing that list. And we're just going to kind of go down the list. We expect some no's, we're going to get some yeses, and so on. I know there are people out there who will be very excited and who want to command, but we're going to be very choosy about who we allow to be commander-in-chief. Specifically, we are preferring people with actual military experience, specifically people who are trained as military officers, to be the commanders-in-chief. Now, we may not get that. We may take substitute experience, a person who is an NCO, for example, maybe a person who is a business leader or has done something like that where they've had to essentially herd cats. And anybody who can successfully herd cats will probably be a decent commander-in-chief for this particular event. And again, we're going to have 4 of those slots that we're going to be filling. Once we handpick those 4 persons will then handpick their subordinates to be corps or division commanders underneath them and so on. And then after all of the hand selections are done, we're going to open it up to the masses, and we're going to allow everybody who wants to pile in to pile in. Of course, we are trying to get to 100 to 120 participants. Obviously, there's a lot of room for a lot of people. The issue with this is on the big game day, we tend to suffer from attrition. And sometimes you have key players who are like corps commanders who can't finish the game, or they drop out, or they no-show, or there's some other issue. And so historically, that leaves us with gaps in command. So the way we're going to deal with that is when we get everybody piling into play, we're going to assign those people to staffs. So rather than giving you an individual command right off the bat, we're going to kind of do what we call command staff style and put you together in a group under a particular side or a particular corps commander. And then on the day of, depending on availability, we will assign you your particular division or whatever it is that you're going to be running. However, by putting people together into staffs, we ensure that those upper echelon positions that need to be manned will be manned, and then we fill in from top down. That way, if we have entrusted somebody with corps or division command, and then they can't show up or they drop out or there's an issue, we can very easily replace them and then worry about the lower levels, because those are much easier to automate, to bot, if you will. So you're not going to get a personal command right off the bat, but you will be getting a command on game day for sure. So that's how we're going to do it. It's going to be a little bit different the way we're going to organize it and run it. The bottom line is we expect that this is going to be a very smooth, very exciting event. The look and the feel is going to be a little bit different, and we think that you will enjoy the event and find it rewarding. We want to thank all of the people who have been contributing and donating, particularly the people who have donated on Patreon, because they have made this particular event possible, because we're using funds from the Patreon to pay our artists to commission the work that will have to be done in order to put this event on and make this event one of the best events we've ever had. So we definitely want to thank the people who have been contributing to us. They've been thanked publicly in the general chat. I don't want to read off names because I want to respect the anonymity of people. I've been asked by several people not to, hey, don't put my name out there online. And I get that. So unless I have a particular waiver, I suppose, from a person saying, hey, you can go ahead and use my name, it's better for me to just maintain anonymity for those persons. Otherwise, we are absolutely grateful for that support. And I hope that you folks are all excited for this event. And I have nothing more to say. So in order to prevent rambling, I'm going to end up the recording now. And if you have questions, please post them in there should be a chat channel I've created in the IKS main. Post your questions there, and I'll do my best to answer them. Stay tuned. There will be updates in the weeks to come as we approach January and our big battle. Thank you so much. Bye for now.